You're about to listen to an archived episode of The Night Shift with Zeno Hiroman. This is brought to you commercial-free by the Surfcast Podcast. If you're interested in more historical, educational, and entertaining surf fishing content, check out weekly episodes of the Surfcast Podcast available today on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere else you get your podcasts, including www.surfcastpodcast.com.
Today is my pleasure to have Nick Bocchino. He is a lure builder, he is a rod builder, he is a bag builder. He's a lot of things, and he's young. For his 11th birthday, he asked for a wood late. He not like the rest of us that asked for a baseball card. So welcome to the show, Nick.
Hey, thank you for having me, Zeno. Appreciate it.
All right, I need to hear this story. So you asked for a wooden late for your 11th birthday?
Correct. Yeah, I really loved building lures, but leading up to before I turned lures, I was just whittling lures, and the first lure I actually made was a little pencil popper, screw eyes and DevCon 5-ton epoxy, 2-ton epoxy, the 5-minute, and it looked terrible. But I caught fish on it with my Uncle Paulie on Jones Reef, and he had us come over maybe once or twice a month, and we'd get to turn on his giant Delta lathe. And I really enjoyed it, and I guess the deciding factor was if I was to get a lathe, where would I put it? But that all worked itself out. I wanted a wood lathe, and for my 11th birthday, I got like a little cheapo lathe, and I used it for probably 3-4 years until I upgraded. And
you probably did more work on that one than you did on the bigger ones because you didn't have anything else to do.
100%, yes. I made more lures on that little lathe than I even do now, and I've got a giant lathe set up here. It was I enjoyed it. It was a treat.
Speaking of your Uncle Paulie, I mean, when I started going to Montauk, he was like the only person that ever talked to me. He is that nice of a guy. Like everybody would ignore me, and he'd be like, "I take pity on that kid. Let me go talk to him." And he would actually talk to him. But when you were young, from what I understand, you also saved enough money to buy a first custom rod that you couldn't even go pick up. You had to go. Your mom drive you to the store.
Yeah, Lou. I got my first rod from Lou, and my parents drove me. We met on the side of Johnny's Tackle, and Lou, of course, being in Farragut and knowing all you guys, and Lou and my uncle knew each other, so he kind of set us up. He said, this guy, he builds rods, his handle is Red Hawk, and Lou made me my first custom rod a long time ago, and my parents, just like everything else that surrounded my life, fishing related, they had to take me to do it. They had to drop me off, or my father would go with me. But yeah.
So now you're making rods, you make plugs, you making bags, all under the 4171 Surfcasting's 4171. I don't know what is exactly the name of it, but what is 4171 and who came up with that?
My fiance actually came up with it. I wish I could take credit for it, but I can't. It's so 4171 is the latitude, longitude, but not just for Montauk, for Block Island, for Rhode Island. It kind of captures some very fishy areas in those coordinates. So she came up with it. She thought, and I ran it by a friend of yours, and he loved it. He's like, there's like this nostalgia behind it, and it just like it sounds really cool. And at first, I was
sounds like Tommy.
It does sound like Tommy, right? It was Tommy. I don't want to name drop, but yeah, it was Tommy, and Tommy's a cool guy, right?
If Tommy thinks it's cool, it's freaking
cool. Exactly. If Tommy thinks it's cool, it's cool, and he did.
For you guys that don't know, Tommy designs all Surfcaster Journal gear and the Surfcaster Journal magazine, and everything that you see Surfcaster Journal is Tommy. So including this podcast. Yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah, I ran it by Tommy, and he thought it was the coolest thing, and it took me a little bit to get on board, and now it's, I love it. I think it is nostalgic. It's kind of, you don't know what it means, and it doesn't really tell you what it is, but I like it.
In some ways, it's kind of cool that you don't have to spell it out for people and have to think about it a little bit. Your bags are really, really high quality, and almost I've heard you say that you can build any bag to anybody's wishes. So meaning your custom bag is truly a custom bag. Nothing to take away from other people who have really, really good bags, but what you do is something truly custom, no?
That is correct. I've got guys there. I got a list. I mean, some of the requests you would look at, and I'm trying to wrap my head around how I'm going to do it. But I'm going to do it. It's fun. To me, I probably spend more time. Not probably. I definitely spend more time thinking about how I'm going to build a bag, drawing a bag, designing it on the computer, and then putting it out, as like a mock bag on some crappy sailcloth before I even build it. That's what most of my time is, because I like the challenge of going and making something that I've never made before, maybe haven't seen before, or something that, you really don't know how you're going to do until you sit down and figure it out. So
what you're telling me, the guy can just come to you and give you his basically wish list, and you're going to try to kind of design it to his needs?
Yeah, and I hope that's what people do. If someone just comes to me and says, "Hey, I want a 3-2 bag," and they just want a 3-2 bag, I would do that. That's not an issue. But I like it when someone comes to me and says, "Hey, I want this bag, and I want it to have this, but I want you to do this to it because I fish like this." That interests me. I just had someone come to me last night, and he said, "I want this bag, but I want these like dividers built into the bag." I thought that was. He's actually the second person this week who's wanted something like that, where it's like kind of divided in this weird way that I'm going to do a lot of hand stitching on the bag. I know that already. Haven't figured out exactly how it's going to get done, but I don't mind. Hand stitching.
Sounds to me like you like the challenge.
I do like the challenge, yes, and I've failed more times than I care to admit. I've got boxes in the attics of just reject bags, and I put so much time into them. They failed, but I don't want to throw them out. I still put so much time into them. So.
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, the failed bag to sell, it might not be a failed bag to use.
Definitely not a failed bag to use. A failed bag to sell, honestly, I don't think most people would know that it's a failed bag, even if you sold it. But it's just, I had a kind of a different approach at first, and, I just tried a bunch of things, which I know the difference now. With how I really want the bag to be, and I don't think most people would know that there's anything wrong with the bags. But I'm very meticulous with the way the bag looks and the way everything lines up and the way the X's cross. It's like my OCD gets the best of me sometimes, and that's enough to start over on the bag. Like if all the points don't cross, it just something starts twitching in my brain, and you put it to the side.
You're also a big student of the game. Although you're young, I know that you know all the players, and I also know that you take your inspiration from certain people that come before. Who is the guy that you look up to most?
Well, who I look up to most, or in terms of building and fabricating gear, would definitely be Steve Campo. It's kind of weird how this all came about. Even building bags, because I thought of building bags. I built plugs. I tried to build rods at first, to wrap rods. I failed so miserably. Trying to wrap rods, it was just over my head. And, so I went right from lures, and I said I really want to make a bag. I said that for about 2 or 3 years. And then I linked up with this guy on eBay who was selling some deep swimmer Super Strike deep bottle plugs with the bigger lip. And we were going back and forth, and we're talking. And he's like, "Oh, yeah, well, I used to fish these with Steve Campo. He actually gave me a couple of these." So we exchanged emails, and then he said to me, "Hey, do you have any interest in making a plug bag?" I was like, "Yeah, I actually do." So the guy said, "Well, Steve was helping me make this bag, and I'm never going to get around to finish it. And it's just in pieces. So he's like, if you want it, you can have it." So the guy sent me this bag that was in all these different pieces, and the sides weren't created yet. The main panel was drawn. I bought a Speedy Stitcher sewing awl, and kind of let it sit there for about 5 or 6 months before I even wanted to tackle it. It was
I could only imagine.
Yeah, you're just looking at it. It's a bunch of lines on sailcloth and nothing's folded. I mean, at this time, I think I had 2 of Steve's bags, 2 of Steve's original bags. But this was just like what do you do with this? It was just,
dude, I can't even stitch a button on my jeans. So I mean,
that was me,
right. So I mean, seriously.
Yeah, it was cool, and like we were saying, you and I were talking before, that was, I think, my first year. I was thinking of staying in Montauk for the winter, and I was in a small apartment, and I didn't have a whole lot to do. And one day I picked it up, and just little by little, I started sewing and some more, and it just started coming to life, and I thought it was incredible. I thought it was incredible, not that I was doing it per se, but that someone else did it before me, right? But when you start with a truly blank canvas, and that blank canvas being, well, there's nothing of this caliber out, and then you go and you kind of put those pieces together. I think you have to have a pretty special brain to be able to figure something like that out, and say, hey, there's some junk bags out here. It's whatever year it is. We're in the 70s, and there's a couple players, and I want to take this and expand. And I think that's what he did. I think that's what makes his bags and his legacy so cool, because it wasn't just the bags, it was the plugs.
It wasn't. I was just about to mention that. I was waiting for you. I didn't want to cut you off, but I mean, he is responsible for so many changes that we might, I don't know if we take it for granted or we assume they've always been around, but this is with rods and reels and plugs, and like every facet of the game, he has improved in some way, shape, or form. It's remarkable, his influence on the sport.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you kind of, you lived it real time, you and many others, you guys got to see such a progression. I mean, I was born into an era, granted the gear I started with wasn't great, but I mean, you guys really saw this change of either making your own stuff, spending a lot of money for stuff that was limited, and you kind of lived in that gap, right, where you saw gear improve drastically. I would assume. Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, listen, I met Steve when he was selling stuff. I went to his basement, and I was like, I cannot still to this day put that picture out of my head, but that's a conversation for another day. But listen, is the plug making, I mean, no, I'm sorry, not the plug making, the bag making, is that like at first you're making it for yourself and you just kind of to fit your needs, and then people see it and they go like, well, make me one? Or is it something else driving you to try to make something that's not on the market?
I think with a lot of fishing, I don't mind how it gets modernized, but I think I'm a perennialist when it comes to certain aspects of fishing, and I think the idea of it being such a long-lasting, durable bag is what got me to make it. I think that, I started making them because I said, hey, you could have something of your own that could last 30, 40 years, almost like a hand-me-down bag. You could give it to your kids one day or, whatever. It's going to last. And then I think, a couple people saw them, started asking about them, made one or two for, some friends, and then made a couple. And, yeah, kind of just grown organically. I've never really been one to jam a product down anyone's throat or, really...
Oh, yeah, to spam the Stripers Online or whatever the hell the website and try to sell your shit to people.
Yeah, it's like if it's for you, it's for you. Not everyone likes overbuilt gear, right? It's just not, it really isn't for everyone. And, I think it's starting to come around where guys have seen them now. They've held them. They've fished next to me. They have friends who, own the product and fish with it. And they do see a difference in the way it's made. It's just a different, design. It's not the grid design, which is totally fine. It's just a lot of guys do that, where it kind of looks like columns.
Oh, the stitches on the outside?
Yeah, correct. It just kind of catches the attention. It's not flashy. If I had it my way, I know it's bad business, the logo would be totally black, or there would be no logo. It's black with like very little bit of white.
You and Tommy get along very well. Because Tommy would take a black marker and just put it right over the thing.
Well, it's funny, when I was talking to Tommy about the logos, he's like, dude, how cool would it be if you, like, branded it on or something? And it was super cool. It was jet black. I loved it. That's a terrible move for business, but guys like Tommy, guys like me, I mean, I think that's cool. And, part of me kind of, wants to go back to it, and maybe I will at some point. I don't know, but
when it comes to actually making a bag, and I know that over the years, the guys that came before you and they're no longer around, but I know that the challenge is always to make these templates, to make your life easier. You actually don't do that. So you tell me, what is the most challenging part about making a bag? I would say the answer would be everything.
Yeah, it's funny. About an hour ago, I was on the phone with someone, and he's thinking about having a bag made, and we're going back and forth, and he said, well, what's easiest for you to do? Pretty much what you brought up. He goes, what could you do fast? I was like, well, you can't do anything fast.
I can go to Dick's and buy a Shimano bag and brand it.
Exactly. I could put my logo on that, but no, there's no fast. I mean, it's not as easy as just tracing something out. And, I was trying to explain that to him, and it's hard for someone to understand if they don't actually build the bag, or they don't, understand how it's built. If I'm building a bag that's, has 3-inch tubes and you want 2-inch tubes, well, my template does me no good for a bag that has 3-inch tubes. So, but that keeps it interesting too. Now it's like you draw it again. I think it keeps your brain kind of sharp, and I don't mind it. It would definitely save time if I was like, hey, here's 3 dozen 3-2 bags and that's it. They're all the same.
But in some way, I from talking to you, I get this distinct feeling that would just kind of kill your willingness to do this.
I'd be bored by noon.
Yeah, that's what I thought. You still make plugs?
I do still make plugs. I got plugs hanging behind me. That's I'm in a small shop here, but the beauty of having the shop laid out the way it is, I have a Clemens rod lathe behind me. I've got a Delta lathe over there. It's got a 4-foot Vega, actually 36-inch Vega Pro on it. So, if I really get frustrated, I really get bored with doing one thing, I kind of just turn around and do the next thing. And that works with me as much as it works against me. You get halfway into a lot of projects, but it keeps things interesting. If I'm tired of looking at sailcloth, I'll go and look at maple. And if I'm tired of looking at maple, I'll go look at the lamy glass, and it's just.
Yeah, how do you get inspiration for your designs for plugs? That you just make them whatever you find something that you need? Yeah.
I mean, I've got here, actually it's right up here. I got like this needle. This was just something I was playing around with. It was like a 3-ounce super slow sinking needle, and yeah, I mean, I turned it. I don't know what I was going for, and I was actually walking down into the south side. One night I was going fishing, and it was like before sunset, and I didn't have a pencil with me. I was kind of just getting out to get a rock, but I had 2 of those needles. And as I was walking down the bluff, I see 2 guys on the corner. It looks like they're pencil popping, and I just see this massive explosion. I was like, whoa. And then it looked like a refrigerator hit the water. And I start walking a little faster, and I realize these guys are pencil popping some really big fish. All I had was that needle, so I threw the white with pink sides needle on, and a couple twitches, and I had a nice big 40+ pound bass. And now that needle, I really like it. So a lot of it's just tinkering, playing with new designs, and then putting them to work and seeing what works. And a lot of times, some they don't work. They don't work the way you want, but sometimes you get a winner. And yeah, it's another. Trial by fire kind of thing, you just keep making stuff, and you throw enough crap at the wall, something will stick. You still spend most of the time fishing in Montauk? I do. Yeah, I do. I like it there. It's how can't you, So. Yeah. It's listen, especially when you're familiar with it and you got somewhere to sleep. I mean, Correct. Yes, correct. I've always admired guys who come out and rough it in their truck 1 week, 2 weeks, or drive out every night. I mean, that takes a real level of dedication that, it's admirable. I don't know how Bill Wetzel is not like 90 pounds. I mean, the amount of running to Southside, that man is tireless. He drives every night. He fishes all night. He walks all night. I mean, incredible amount of work. I mean, it's just, so to sleep in your truck that many nights, I definitely respect all of that. Absolutely. It's definitely, it just adds, you think about it, you could spend, if you're driving 2 hours each way, then that time, and then the time you're getting ready, you could spend another 4 hours fishing the tide if you're local, you could just...
How long you been fishing Montauk?
Oof, well, I've been fishing Montauk, fishing Montauk or fishing Montauk? I've been fishing Montauk, since I was a little kid, and snapper fishing. I've been fishing the surf, maybe seriously since I've been, about 11, 12, 10, somewhere around those lines. I think one of the first really solid surf bites, well, at least one that really sticks with me, it's the night on the North Bar. You had that big bass, there was like 3 nights of good fishing leading up, and you whacked a big one. I was very young then, but
this was in May.
This was in May. I'm sure you had a number of fish on the north side that were big.
Yeah,
but I remember
that was one year when I was guiding. That was the weirdest fish that I ever caught in my life. So the story of that fish, the story was that I used the rig deal or something, which was a bullshit story that came out the next day. So I'm guiding this guy. They come from Jersey, 2 guys, right? One guy cannot stand up, had way too much to drink. He comes with a white bucket full of pins, right? So I put the needlefish on. We are off Falls Bar. There's way too many guys there. I says, listen, there's nothing going on. Let's move to the North Bar. The tide's going to change soon. So he's casting. He's not catching anything. So I said, do you mind if I make a cast? Because when I was guiding, I wouldn't fish. I generally would just stand behind him and watch. So I make one cast and I get a fish. And then I get another cast and I get a fish. And I says, okay, the fish are here. They're not big, but they're here. Cast. So he casts. It's like 20 minutes later, no fish. So, sometimes at the change of a tide, you got that flurry of fish.
Sure.
And then that's that. You know what I'm saying? That's it. So it's like 15 minutes later, he can't get a bump. I'm like, do you mind if I make another cast? He goes, yeah, I don't mind. So I make a cast with a brand new needlefish, 1 3/4 ounce yellow needle, super structured needlefish. First cast, I got a fish like 44 pounds. He goes, that was my fish. I'm like, I said, I'm not made for it. I quit guiding right then and there. That's it. I was done. I am not guiding anyone. I like fishing way too much to listen to your bitching about your fish.
To ruin fishing. Yeah.
No, that was not. Yeah, but that was it was pretty nice fish caught that time.
Yeah, I remember seeing all juvenile weak fish. I just thought it was a cool experience. And then to boot, I saw whatever commotion was going on down there. It turns out there was a big slob. On
one of the rare big fish that I've caught. Montauk. Listen, I'll be honest with you. Montauk's never kind to me when it comes to big fish. I'll be the first to admit. I don't think I've ever had that many big fish. Neither did I spend that much time there. I always enjoyed it, but some of those days on nor'easters, if you fish Montauk and you really like Montauk for Montauk, you'll live for those days. Even if you're not fishing, just being in that water, and it just feels like every fucking cast it can be a 50-pound fish.
It does, yeah. The past couple, nor'easters, the past few, really since like 2015, right? They haven't been as rewarding, but you're still gonna go. You're not gonna be in bed. You know that one day it's gonna. But yeah. It's definitely has its moments, and I'm positive when I say that. I know I've missed a lot of them. A lot of them before my time, and late season.
You know what? You're gonna miss more. You just mentioned that your girlfriend picked out a name. She's gonna make you miss a lot more.
Exactly. I'm just gotta get used to it. Yeah.
No, that's fine. Listen, that's just life.
You take it on the chin.
Yeah, as a plug builder, do you find that you fish? And I'm not even talking about your plug, because some of us are just fish what we like. Like, do you find what's your favorite plug, regardless if you make it or whoever makes it?
Sure. Honestly, my favorite plug's probably a bucktail.
Yeah, that makes 2 of us.
Yeah. It's just, there's a crate over there which has got just tons of Bob Howard's bucktails.
Bob the Cop.
Yeah, Bob the Cop, exactly. Detective Bob. He's just such a kind guy, and he's tied so many for us. And I love throwing the bucktail. It always works. There's you could throw a bucktail anywhere. And but if I'm fishing like the south side, I'm throwing the Super Strike Darter. I'm throwing one of my needlefish. I'm throwing something that if I'm not out far can give you some distance and tried and true. It's funny because even when I was younger, I'd always wonder. I'd be like, how are these guys catching all these big fish? And it was like such a mystery. It was like this elusive, this group of guys who were always getting big fish, and now, it's just go out there and cast. Just cast something that works and just keep casting it. And it just took so long to realize, well, if you throw something that works and you just keep doing it, your odds of it colliding with one of these fish is a lot greater. So, I just like to throw what works, and I like to just keep casting it and try and, fish that lure as effectively as possible. So if that happens, and the fish and the lure meet up, it doesn't take too good a look at it, it just...
Listen, my thing has always been never to be the brightest or the boldest or the strongest or the smartest. I'm not John Skinner by any means. I would always win by perseverance. I know when we used to fish bait, everybody would be like, 2 a.m., there's no fish here, I'm staying till morning. And you know what? At 4 a.m., you'll be like, there's a 30-pound fish. People go, well, it's just a matter of standing in there and casting. But yeah, I mean, listen, now you're one of the guys that we hear about catching big fish because you're out there. I mean, this is your time. A lot of guys, they go through these stages where you can only put so much time on in depending where you are. So
sure.
Do you find that fishing Montauk, do you find that it gives you any inspiration as far as what you do with building bags?
Oh, absolutely. I'm not, put it this way, if it wasn't for fishing, I would never be sewing. I won't take up quilting tomorrow if I can't, if I can't go fishing. So, it's kind of funny because everything that, revolves around your life outside of your real life, right? Outside of your relationships with family and everything else that kind of drives you has to do with fishing in one way or another, right? It's just sewing has to do more with fishing than it has to do with sewing. It's kind of hard to explain to people. They say, why do you sew? Oh, I sew because I love fishing. It just doesn't make much sense. But fishing and, surf fishing definitely drives sewing. It drives, obviously, rod building and lure building. And, doing it in Montauk more so. I think if you fished on a sand beach or if you fished a back bay your whole life, and not that there's anything wrong with it, I wouldn't care so much about the kind of gear I make, right? It really wouldn't matter. That's where that, white bucket that your buddy, that your client had, right? That would come in handy if you're just fishing on the sand beach. But for the type of fishing that goes on in Montauk and a lot of these other places that you're, notoriously tough on your gear, it's important to have good gear. And I've had good gear and I've had bad gear. I'll choose quality gear any day of the week.
If you're picking us perfect conditions to fish Montauk for yourself, regardless of this south side, north side, what are we looking at? What is it? Is it a new moon in June with a 50 miles an hour wind? Is it a calm night on the north side with a bunker around your feet? What is
It wouldn't be with bunker, I'll tell you that much.
I always got frustrated about bunker. Yeah. I never thought it was a good bite in Montauk. Never.
I mean,
it's a very frustrating bite.
It is. They only have to eat 3 and then they're full. Right? And then if they are actively feeding, you got to get something into a school of these big bunker that looks like enough like a bunker, but kind of looks different, right? It's got to look close, but not close. It's,
unless you can snag the fucking fish and just let it in the sand and let something eat it, you die. Think about it. If you ate a hero, you're done. Well. If you took a bag of Doritos, you keep picking at them.
Yeah, I might have a couple more bags. No, you're 100% correct, and that's kind of how I see bunker fueled bites. Most places I go, but Montauk, it's always tricky, and Montauk's lately been paved with it. So for me, an ideal, if it's the fall, right, and we have a good body of sand eels, we have a ton of sand eels, I'm fishing the sand beaches. I know guys who would live and die by the rocks. I admire that. I live and die by where the fish are. And if there's sand eels all over the sand beaches, I'm fishing the sand beaches. Moons, I will definitely, keep my eye on the moon, I'll fish or more around them, but I'll fish in between them too. It's not, if I have the time, like I was saying before, I'm going to go. I'm going to try, whether it's mid-moon, whether it's before the full or following, but really June, July, always good in Montauk. I think end of May, you used to see guys do a lot better. Like the end, last week of May, second week of May, you'd see guys get, some scraggler fish or some racers come up, I think Paul Piero always used to whack like a 48-inch, like a super long 40-pounder.
Thin fish, racer,
that used to happen a lot more. Maybe there's not enough guys fishing into May, but yeah, summertime. I love fishing the summertime in Montauk. It always gives a fishy feeling, but the fall, it's comfortable to go fishing. I think I fish longer in the fall because it's so comfortable. I'd give it to, I'd like to fish October 1st to October 30th. If I could just do that, I'd
I'm listening to you, and I see the difference between someone who spends time and has a place at Montauk, a family or tradition, and I see myself where I remember driving, 3, 4, 5 times a week, and I'm like, and this was, listen, now you're going to be surprised, but there was years where the sand eel bites was on the sand, and there was not a goddamn thing in the rocks. Like the guys would go for days, and they would go like, I think I had a bump, or maybe I hit the rock. I'm not sure. But on the sand, the guys would catch fish. And I would be like, I didn't drive a fucking 100 miles here to fish on sand. I could go to Jones Beach and fish on sand. And I would refuse to. And I would fish the kings, and I would catch nothing, and I would go home, and I would be pissed. But I thought I was right. Now, at this age, I'm like, such an idiot. Should have just went on sand and caught fish. So.
Yeah, well, the lesson's repeated until it's learned, right?
Well, the whatever was wasted on a youth, whatever they say. I was definitely in your shoes. But I what I'm saying is, I'm trying to explain for everybody that might listen to. It's very difficult when you come from a place like Jersey or Up Island somewhere, and you're all excited about fishing that famous legendary water around the lighthouse, and then somebody tells you, we'll just go behind Paulie's, and you're like, no, I can't. I mentally cannot. Until 2-3 days with no fish, then you just then you go in Fort Pond and just go.
Well, you see, all the videos from like 2000 to 2010, and it's whitebait blitzes, the north side, but with quality fish, and that's what everyone would like to do. That's what you expect it to be. But you're right. Then when they say
we took that for granted,
there's a wild bite on the sand beach, and all you got to do is like park here and walk here. It's for me, it's hard to say no to. Right? It's just.
Yeah, I hear you. Listen, there were some good innings this fall. At least it seems to return some blitzing bait. So that's nice to see with all the smaller fish. Although we all know that the fishery is in trouble. But what do you see as a future for 4171 for your brand?
I'm always gonna like building bags. I'm keep going with it. I'm as many people are that are gonna come to me and say I want a custom bag. I'll build it. That's plain and simple. I see it going, getting bigger than what it is now. But like I said, I'm never one to like throw a product in your face and say you have to have this. Like you're missing out if you don't have this. If this is for you, if you like really solid gear that's going to last you a long time, then I'd love to build you a bag. But yeah, I see it going somewhere further than it is now. I'm excited to see where it goes, and I'm optimistic about the future for the game.
Yeah, I remember I asked you to come to our show, I think last year, and you literally just didn't have anything to build or didn't have anything pre-made, and you just couldn't make it. So yeah. I can understand that.
It's I mean, God, it's a ton of work. I just gave away a bag, and people are messaging me. They're like, I don't think people are grateful that you're giving away this bag. They don't know how much work it takes. I like seeing people fish my product. I give away bags, plugs, stuff all the time when I can. But people, I don't think people do realize. I mean, it's a lot faster to build a plug. It's a lot faster to build 24 plugs than it is to build a bag. It takes a lot of time, a lot of thinking, and there's no starting over once you mess up. That's the other thing. It's not like you're wrapping the rod and you're like, oh, let me just unwrap this.
Strip it and redo it.
It's like, oh, I'll just put another piece of wood on the lathe. It's like, you mess up, it hurts.
How do people contact you? What's the best way?
I'm having a website built now, actually, but most people are through Instagram, Facebook. Sometimes I get calls from, like, random numbers. Like, how do you get my number? And, like, a friend's giving the number to a friend, and it gets to a friend. But most of my exposure is through word of mouth, Instagram, Facebook.
Okay, I'll put the links in a show notes so people can just click on it and find you on Facebook and Instagram. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and it was a pleasure. I'm glad you kind of jumped in here. I know I made you jump around a hoop a little bit. We had to cancel a few times.
Not at all. I appreciate you having me. It was nice to be on, and I'm excited to see where these podcasts go. So far, I'm loving them, man. They're really good content.
Thank you. I thought I was going to suck at it, but I'm kind of finding my way around.
No. You're a people's person, and you're...
No, I honestly, I'm like, I was just talking to my wife. It's like I'm looking at reviews. We only did like 4 shows, and like they got like 70 reviews, and everybody loves it. And I was like, I'm really surprised. I'm honored, but I'm very surprised.
Yeah, well, podcasts are like the new thing. I mean, my fiance, she can't go in the car without listening to a podcast. Now I'm finding myself listening to fishing podcasts, and hey, now you got a surf fishing podcast. I don't know of one of this caliber.
Right. I probably listen to 10 a day. I work in construction, and they're in my ear all day. It's either Jim Cramer, it's Wall Street, or it's David Chang, or it's every day.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of enjoy that. So anyway, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Best of luck to you. We'll see you on Montauk, and I love you, man. Be good, okay?
Thank you, Z. Appreciate it, man.